Status of the RV. Of course, no one really knows except the planners in the CBI. My CBI contact tells me that there is a very strong possibility that September-December will be the phase-in of the redenomination to the newer lower denominations of the IQD. We were told that even with the electronic banking and inclusion efforts along with the digital dinar, there will be a need for hard currency on the streets, and this will not go away. The fact is there will only be one more rate change, and it will be a change in country only. Then the reinstatement, which would more than likely bring the rate up even more. Can you call this 2 rate changes? Technically yes, but let's not confuse the process. There is no guarantee the reinstatement will be different from the in-country rate, and, in fact, it could come out the same as an initial sucker rate, maybe. But what we do know for sure is there will never be 2 official rates for the dinar. The in-country rate will be the reinstatement rate also once the reinstatement occurs. Get it? Why in hell do you think they had to have the parallel market come in line with the official CBI rate? So they did this so there can be control over their own currency. There can never be 2 official rates. There have been many solutions implemented to obtain the nearly 80% of the Iraqi currency hoarded outside the banking system. Unfortunately, none of these solutions have seemed to work to the degree of the needed success. What will the CBI do now? Will a redenomination be the answer? This hoarded capital is much needed to continue the progress of the development, road and other projects in Iraq. The banks need this money to loan out. So why doesn't the CBI just print more money and solve this problem? You all should realize, by now part of the monetary reform is to shrink the monetary supply by almost 2/3. Why would the CBI print more money at this stage of the game? Instead, they told us they must shrink if back to 2003 to 2004 era levels. They must get this 80% of the cash into the banks. The CBI in the past was forced to print and issue more dinar to combat stolen funds and hoarded cash stashes. But they have moved into the next phase of financial reform, not survival. So now they must shrink it back and go back to lower denominations and coins. Remember that when you shrink the money supply, you can increase the value of the money that remains in circulation. Think about it. It's not rocket science to understand. It is right along with simple microeconomics of supply and demand. This is also why they had to curb the loosey-goosey parallel market and get it in line. Not to mention the corrupt money smuggled out of Iraq to Iran. In the past month there has been nothing but much more. Very good news coming from Iraq.like. The US accelerates the withdrawal of its forces from 2 bases in Iraq, ahead of schedule. American soldiers in Iraq informed. Sources revealed on Sunday that the United States has decided to withdraw all its forces from 2 military bases in Iraq. Sources revealed that the US has decided to withdraw all its soldiers from the Ain al-Assad base in Anbar province and the Victoria base at Baghdad airport. Sources indicated that US forces are beginning to transfer their personnel to Erbil and a neighboring Arab country. She noted that the Americans informed their Iraqi counterparts that they would accelerate the withdrawal process and would not adhere to the timetable set out in the framework agreement between the 2 countries. Sabah al-Newman, the spokesman for the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, confirmed last Monday that the withdrawal of coalition forces from Iraq was one of the government's achievements, noting that it was an indicator of Iraq's ability to confront terrorism. He said, "The withdrawal of international coalition forces from Iraq is one of the government's achievements and an indicator of Iraq's ability to combat terrorism and maintain security and stability, without needing assistance from others." Al-Newman added, "This would not have happened without political efforts and the insistence of the Prime Minister to close this file, just as he closed the UNAMI file." The US Embassy in Iraq announced earlier that the international coalition in Iraq would transition to a bilateral security partnership. This is not the end of the global coalition to defeat ISIS's work, as it will continue its civilian-led efforts at the global level, the embassy said in a statement. She added that the coalition's military mission in Iraq will transition to a more traditional bilateral security partnership, noting that details related to our military plans and operations will be referred to the Ministry of Defense. These arrangements were created in 2003, but remain in place today, even though their original justifications, on paper, have disappeared. Yes, all sanctions were lifted in 2022. And so why is this arrangement of the petrodollar still in place? This too had to change. Yet another couple articles titled, Iraq's Oil Fortune, the 2-decade grip of a US fortress, and titled Economist, Billions of Dollars Lost Due to US Control Over Iraq's Resources. We can clearly see that Iraq will not and cannot reinstate the dinar until the US says it can. As I have said many times too that, in the midst of all this behind-the-scenes stuff, the CBI keeps moving ahead, on the path to the reinstatement through the banking reforms and aligning Iraq internationally. I know that this reinstatement will happen and has to happen. If you are holding enough dinar, you are already a millionaire only. We can't go to the bank yet. I cannot speak as loud for these other currencies such as the Vietnam dong and other. However, I will say that it would not surprise me a bit if they did put many of them in many baskets to support each other, and this would put them on a more level playing field. As President Trump has stated many times will happen. He did not say might or may happen, he said will happen. As far as the Zimbabwe dollar goes, I am still a bit skeptical because I know in 2016 they voided out these multi-trillion notes and redenominated to the lower denominations. At that time they did start with the Zimbabwe dollar equal to the US dollar 1:1, but this quickly fell apart and did not last. Soon hyperinflation set in again. I believe it is now worth about 13 to 23 cents, but this is for the newer denominated notes, not the older, pre-2016 notes, unless Zimbabwe makes the much-needed other structural banking and financial reforms. This will never work for them. Anyhow, I only caution anyone who invests in these other currencies thinking they are going to make them rich. The only sure currency I now know of is the Iraqi Dinar. You may not get as much return on it, but it is solid. This RV status is getting too long already today, and so I have to conclude. In conclusion, we must all pray and pray hard that nothing fouls up the process. There is still many possibilities that can foul it all up. One is security with the issue of the PMF, Iran's militias in Iraq. The other is the salaries with the Kurds and the oil issues. I believe all of these issues will eventually work out, but what will their timing be? So, let's pray for the Iraqi people and this financial process to move ahead. Remember too that in the recent prophecies, God is telling us that this chaos we are witnessing is coming to an end soon. What does soon mean? I do not know, but I can feel an end to it when the US indictments come out, and they are coming out in the coming months.